And with that, we will cut all this from the recording. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from. My name is Doug Warren, Director of Baseball Driveline from Driveline Academy. This is Driveline Academy podcast. My co-host, my brother, my partner, as per usual, Jeremy Tactile, Driveline Academy International Man of Mystery. Don't forget it.
Not only good speed, but I feel like, I don't know if there's like a rating for ASMR, but I feel like you did it was like very, very soft and quiet, and I feel like that would do really well in like an ASMR group, you know?
You want to cut up some ASMR clips of the Academy podcast? I'm your Huckleberry. This is what happens when I spend, probably somewhere north of 8 hours continuously talking from Friday through, no, it's more than that, it's 12. So, no, another 2 on top of there for setup. 14 hours between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with my good friends at the Virginia Baseball Coaches Association, run by Tim Mary, who's one of the most excellent human beings that I think I have ever met. And the weird thing is they grow a lot of these excellent human beings in Virginia. Pudge, Rob Monty, man, just the list goes on and on. But before we get to that, housekeeping. I haven't even figured this out. Axbat.com, code DL20, get yourself 20% off. It's the holidays. This should come out right before the holiday. I don't know that Axe can get it shipped to you. You can do that whole thing where you like buy the thing and you print a picture of the thing that you bought. I've scummed my way through a couple holiday seasons that way because I buy stuff too late.
I love you, Mom, but that's basically every year.
Sometimes it happens. So Axbat.com, code DL20. I already did Daihatsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do Duolingo because that's like a copyrighted thing. Detroit Lions 20. Get yourself 20%
That's
off.
definitely also copyrighted.
Ah, gosh.
They did win this weekend.
I know. Deinonychus Lancer 20. Get yourself 20% off. Which one? Deinonychus was one of the Greek gods? No, where did I...
Dionysus? That was the... I think he was the Greek god of, like, drama, wine?
Okay.
Wine?
Yeah, I think...
Partying?
Oh, yeah, because from the episode of The Office where they're at Robert California's house,
yeah.
isn't that? Okay.
Yes, yeah, he does.
Yeah. So Deinonychus Lancer, get yourself 20% off. Lancer was the name of a very terrible American car in the early 80s. Axbat.com, DL20, 20% off. Get something for yourself. Put some money into our Academy Scholarship Fund because it does not go to you and I. It goes to the kids. Okay. And with that, Virginia Baseball Coaches Association recap. So I did 3 talks there because Tim said he wanted me for 3, and I am your Huckleberry. You tell me to show up somewhere and talk, and I'll do the talking. So Friday, I did the Friday morning talk about like principles of our driveline stuff. I'm kind of inclined to like put some slides out of that publicly because what I was trying to do is like, you know, if I'm going to go and talk to a bunch of high school coaches and I'm aware that high school coaches aren't going to have like a $250,000 bionic laboratory or anything like that, to try to make it relevant to them, we'd really try to focus on like the principle of it, and which really leans into like the 4-step process of like assess, test, train, recess. Wait. Yeah. I got it right. It's been a long weekend. Compounded by the fact that as per usual, when I travel, I don't sleep, which is just the best. It's the best. It's great when you have a ton of work to do. It's not great when you try to be a functional human being. So did that on Friday morning, and then did the breakout on Friday afternoon. And the plan was to like go in there and talk about like engagement and gamification, all that other stuff. We had like 25 people in there, and I was just like, I'm not going to go sit up on the stage like I'm whatever. Let's just like go hang out at some tables. So we all circled up on the tables and just talked about a bunch of stuff. It was pretty tight. Somebody actually had a really good question that I was able to answer personal experience, which was sometimes when you're doing like back squats, kids get in that position where like the lean back thing and it starts to like aggravate the elbow a little bit. Like, how do you program around that? And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's me. Like when I back squat, it gets me to the point where like I just can't feel anything from like my elbow down. So if I was going to do back squats or if I was going to do any type of squatting, which I've been very negligent at more than like the last year and a half, I would for sure do like a safety squat, you know. But yeah, I mean, build the chest, F the rest, right?
Wreck your chest for the boys.
Sure. If you don't have to be an athlete, if you do have to be an athlete, you probably want to squat and hinge. So, So that was Friday. And then I did the same thing for the rest of the day on Friday that I did from when I landed on Thursday to when I finally passed out, which was knock down all like the tiny little like last pieces of the book. Which this should be in housekeeping, actually.
I was shocked it wasn't, and I was going to, as soon as the Virginia Baseball Coaches Association combo was done, I was going to be like, we're going to talk about the big thing that we did.
If there is an indicator for how tired I am, it's the fact that I didn't start talking about the book that's consumed the last like 14 months of my life literally being done. So yeah, went back to the room and knocked out a bunch of final stuff. And I've said this privately, and I will say it publicly later in our company Slack channel, but I will say it publicly here as well. Chapa, Cade, Issa, and Chloe, who probably none of you know, but are people here at Driveline, that like the whole reason that this book is actually a book and it's just not like a giant Google Doc with a bunch of ramblings of a crazy person is because of those four people. Man, they've worked so flipping hard, and I don't know. It makes you feel like you're on a team when you can like see that type of stuff, you know. And that's not the first time that I've had that experience working with Driveline. I think it's one of the things that I like enjoy the most about working here is that like we can collectively do a thing, you know. And like that part is just it's really awesome. Like it was on, I think on Friday afternoon that I got like the final PDF. It was like, it's all in one. It's not this chapter here and this chapter here and all like the component pieces. It was just like, it's one doc. And it was, it's pretty awesome. Very terrifying. Very terrifying. I have spent many very sleepless nights being like, I don't know if the book's good enough. I don't know if it's complete enough. Stressing out about the programming, like everything in there. But it's everything we got, you know.
And
like,
go pre-order it.
So, if it resonates for you that like you think that youth baseball should be revolve around development and engagement, this is the book for you. Like it's just.
And if you're someone listening to this podcast who's like, you know, that doesn't resonate with me, why are you listening to this podcast?
Yeah.
So go buy the book.
It's, you know, it's everything that we could like throw at the problem. Like I was talking to somebody about it and just going like, look, there is going to be an audience that like this book isn't for. You know, if you're looking for like the quick fix, if you are attracted to like the intervention method of coaching, if you think that you can kind of like buy your way to performance and you approach this whole thing that way with like you're trying to patch it together, like, you know, I don't know. I don't even know what book to recommend, honestly.
The Bible.
Or just scroll Instagram and hope that one day your feed is going to present you with like the perfect drill that's going to solve everything.
There's the book. Just Twitter.
Yeah, it's just Twitter. Get your Twitter fingers going. But if you are on the other side of the aisle, then this is the thing for you. If you really want to learn as much as you can about like how to execute that thing, I have poured my guts into the pages that are in that book that are going to be arriving to you by late January. So yeah, pre-orders live. Guys are buying it. Girls are buying it. Like, which is cool. I'm really appreciative of the support. Because again, it's like, you know, one of I think the quote that's the quotes that is the last chapter we talked about last week in the preview. And if you really want to get more in-depth information about the contents of the book and you got 90 minutes to spare, we got 2 episodes for you. But like that whole, you know, a revolution starts with an idea in one man's mind or whatever, and then it becomes the key to that era. You know, when I do these type of like coaching conferences, and whether it's like a small room of like 50 people or it's a bigger room of like 200 people, and it's not, I'm not the only one that's like pushing, you know?
Yeah.
And you see like other people that are kind of like, they do the thing where we're using current information about like sports science and development. Chase, I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm just not going to do it. But Chase is a guy that runs a strength place out there called Beach Fitness. And they presented about like their approach to strength training before I did my talk about the youth stuff on Saturday. And I'm sitting in the back there and I'm just like, yep. No, that's right. Yep. And it's great, you know, because it tells me that there are other people that I think have done the same thing that we've tried to do, which is learn as much as you can. And then the whole point is just to weaponize that information.
Yeah.
And it's like when we're not the only ones that are saying like you should train the actual anaerobic system, right?
And I think it's hard because a lot of times if you're scrolling social media, you can really feel like you're the only one.
Yep.
And like there's just a torrential downpour of people from the other side just coming at you constantly, and it's hard to remember that like, oh, I'm not alone here, and like I might even be in the majority if we're talking rational people, not people that just yell on social media.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. It's always great to be around people who, in real life, actually are rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. And like, when I did my talk on Friday, one of the things I was talking about in terms of principles was, we've been through this era of baseball where we're at the highest level of consequence. A lot of teams are just kind of like, well, we're not going to draft guys that are shorter than like X value of whatever. I think it was the Yankees who would like every pitcher had to be 6'4" or bigger or something like that at one point. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong.
This goes back to the Moneyball scenes of like, what does girlfriend look like?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. The ugly girlfriend theory. Then on Friday night, Rob Honey and Pudge Gorman, again, amazing coaches, phenomenal human beings, put together this dinner, and we went out, and Billy Wagner was there, who, before I leave, I tell my son, I'm like, hey, it looks like I'm going to be going to dinner with Billy Wagner. He's like, Dad, you got to tell him that his card to MLB The Show is like really, really, really good.
You didn't tell him that.
I did tell him that.
God.
I told him that because he was telling stories about how other kids have come up to him and told him the same thing.
I'm sure.
And I was like, Mr. Wagner, sir, I need you to understand that my son also appreciates your diamond whatever card and MLB The Show. But he was telling a story about how a scout from the Yankees, basically he was about to come out and chirped him about his height. So then when I did my talk on Friday and he was there and I was talking about this principle stuff, I was like, look, the point of trying to train with this data, measure the stuff that matters, and then develop it is that you are inherently not subjecting yourself to some type of bias that would have you ignore a Billy Wagner, right? Like if you just go, well, I'm going to draft everybody that's 6'4" and up, you're missing out on a guy that should, like, that's a Hall of Famer. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's in the conversation says enough. Yeah. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole to go like, quantifiably does he deserve to be in the Hall? He's on the ballot. Yeah. Like that's such a 0.0001 outcome or whatever.
Yeah, but the guys that sat here last episode have also been on the ballot, so
sure.
We like Billy Wagner way more than that.
True. For you guys who don't know, we've been joined by.
Well, no, because it's.
Oh, you can't even see.
We zoomed in on the screen. So this episode, we're no longer joined by.
True.
Guys.
True. Yeah, with the ever-changing configuration of our podcast room. So
we'll get there. I promise you, we'll get there.
We'll get there. There's cool stuff happening off frame that you can't see.
As I'm looking over this, this is great podcasting.
It's great. We're getting close. But I was just like, the point is like you can see guys like that. You can develop outlier stuff like that, regardless of physical presentation. If you have stuff and you have the athletic juice behind it, like of course. And of course, we're on the way to dinner and Billy Wagner is talking about, I just had the heater. When he was younger, right? When he was younger, heater. And it wasn't that he was not trying to develop feel for other pitches. And, he was telling us, I think at one point he was trying to learn to split. It was like when he found it, it'd be good. And then every other time, like when he couldn't find it, it's just like, then you just got the heater. But when the heater's good enough, weirdly,
it's the most relatable Billy Wagner's ever sounded.
Weirdly, you can still get outs, right? So that was pretty cool. Saturday did the youth thing specifically upon the idea that I'm trying to communicate and stuff like this is like we don't have an agreement on the intention of youth baseball. So all this stuff that we see on like a week to week basis that we recount to you guys on the Youth Baseball Bummer Power Hour is the outcome of that system, and it's the lack of a system. So that went well. And then on Sunday, did a clinic at Eric Crozier Place in Chantilly for Bonnie Hoffman and Jen with DC Girls Baseball. Bro. So one of the young women they have on there is on the women's national team.
Okay.
And, it's one of those things that like, the real good ones, they just stick out a little bit. Like they just stick out a little bit. And it's always funny to me when I think about, the parents that are desperate to understand why their kids aren't getting attention from coaches at the next level. And they think that like the box score stuff is going to stick out like that. And it's the athlete that sticks out. It's the athlete that sticks out, right? So, so I had a group of like 17 girls, of a bunch of different ages. Everything from like some pretty good 14, 16s, and then the one girl that's playing on the 18U team is just really young, 12s, I think, are the youngest that they had. And a couple of them were like really, 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 really new to bat and ball sports, much less baseball. So we just did some meat and potato stuff, talked again about like the intention stuff and kind of what we do and why for the kids. Went into dynamic, did the throwing, so we started doing the drills, and you just, you watch this one girl that's playing on the national team, and just the movement quality is just off the charts. And I'm like hammering, like, hey, everything should be 80% or less, 80% or less, 80% or less, right? Because I don't know these girls from Eve, haven't seen them before. We're not going to walk in about anybody out of here being like really fatigued or hurt. And it's just like zap, 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 and okay, just tell me that's 80%, right? And she's like, yeah. It's like, okay. And she kept working, whatever. And I come back around a couple minutes later after making a little cycle. I was like, you throw pretty hard, right? And she goes, yeah, it's only 80. She's, I think she's 16. No, she's 17. And like, there's going to be some interesting thing coming out of girls who are playing baseball, I think, in the next 4 or 5 years, because I really fundamentally just think that you're going to see more girls get a chance to play in college because the skill stuff's going to be there.
That'd be awesome.
Like, maybe it's not full on like Vandy D1 level, right? But I think you're absolutely going to see more for it. And for me, the perspective of like how to get there is really clear. It's like you just have to lean further into the skill thing. Yeah. I was thinking this morning about some of the conversations we had about how to help literally some of our academy parents understand the value of the commitment that we're asking for.
We can do this on the pod.
Right. And the thought I have is like you need to understand that like I think to maximize development it requires you to make different decisions. Like you have to make different decisions. And the problem is that a lot of times the behavior that we see from parents, because again, it is the parents that are ultimately being the bus driver on a lot of this stuff, is they make the same decisions as everybody else. They land in the same place and then they question why they got there. And it's like the path is really clear. If you want to be something different, you have to do something different. Yes. So whether you appreciate Driveline's principles and approaches to skill development, whether that's the skills to scale stuff, whether that's the test retest model or whatever, choose the thing that like resonates for you. But if the thing that you end up choosing is the same repetitive behavior of everybody else in the ecosystem, you can't be surprised when you end up in the same place. And again, be really clear, to end up as part of that 9% of kids who go on to play college baseball, that's a different place. Like that's a different place. But if that's really the thing that you want, it's the thing that the athlete wants, it's the thing that you prioritize, the thing that the athlete prioritizes, you have to do something different.
Yeah. Yes. From my perspective, I know it's difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I know it's difficult to do something different than what everyone else around you is doing. Like, I get that.
The social pressure of it is substantial. Like, I get it. I totally get it.
And coming from someone who was working in pro ball as Driveline was getting a little bit more traction, we would not, neither of us would have jobs. We wouldn't be sitting in this wonderful, fancy facility if there weren't a non-zero amount of big leaguers that were willing to be ridiculed and look different and do it different because they knew they were right. And they knew what they believed in, and I don't really care if people from fans to teammates to coaches to executives are constantly on me for the way I do certain things because it is different than anybody else who's ever played this game or whatever. you fast forward 6, 7, 8 years, and those guys no longer look like idiots.
Oh, how the worm turns.
So I get it if you are a parent that like a parent of a Driveline Academy kid. It is not the easiest thing that we're asking you to do something very different from what your next door neighbors are doing, Johnny down the block. I get it. You may have to take some ridicule. You have all the evidence in the world that what you're doing is the right move and it works. So like in my estimation, like you can turn that ridicule around pretty quickly. But I get it. It's not for everybody. But like, I promise you this works. We know it works. It's worked on at every level of baseball. You don't have to be an early adopter. It's going to come for you. I would recommend, if you're listening to this and you're on the fence about whether or not to follow some of the rules that we have or join the program or anything like that. Again, it's not for everybody. Are you willing to be a little bit different and do it a little bit differently? Are you happy with the way that it's always been? Are you happy with the place that that's gotten you to? If the answer to that is no, but the answer to am I willing to do it very differently and maybe look a little silly to people that don't know is also a no, then you're just stuck in the middle and there's nobody that can help you.
And there's no win in there, man.
You can do it the old way, and best of luck. It has worked for, what do we say, like, how many thousand people?
4,800?
It's worked for almost 5,000 people, or whatever that number is. Your kid might actually, there's a non-zero chance that your kid is actually one of those 5,000 people, and it's going to work. Or you could not go all in on one number in roulette and put it on red or black and come with us.
Yeah.
And like, nobody's telling you that this is going to work 100% to get your kid playing at a high level. But we have all the evidence in the world saying that this works for kids of all different abilities. And like, this is a much safer, much better bet than like crossing your fingers and hoping playing 120 games a year winds up with your kid playing college baseball.
And again, hard work gives you honesty, right? Like you're going to get, I'm pretty convicted that the truth of how good you possibly could be as an athlete, the truth of how good your child could be is only going to be found if you approach this thing in a way that actually reveals that, right? And the funny thing is, so on Saturday, one of the things that Tim did for VBCA is they brought in they had 3 kids that were all first-round draft picks last year that all came from Virginia. Like, people sleep on Virginia a little bit in terms of baseball town. And 2 of those were Johnny Formello and James Triantos. So Formello is a Mariner. He's a kid in the Mariners, where Triantos...
Cubs.
Thank you. Yeah, with the Cubs. And Rob introduced me to them. We started talking Driveline, and we got outside of the room. And they're like, "Man, I didn't realize you guys had teams. That's awesome."
Because do both of them train with us? I know James.
So James Triantos does. Farmello trains at a local place. But they're like, "Man, that's awesome." They're like, "I didn't know you guys had travel teams." And I said, "Well, we don't have travel teams, Johnny, because we don't travel." And he's like the moment that you say that, he's like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that the moment that we do this, it's just we're putting a bunch of money and time and effort into something that really isn't giving you that much leverage to help you get good." You're like, "Oh, wow." So, when you got first rounders, right? And again, when they were up on stage, talking about their routines, right? And the stuff that kind of like got them there. When you hear young men that are pretty mature about their perspective on what it took to get to the place that they wanted to go, but then the amount of extra work that it's going to take to get to the next thing, right? Like you're a first rounder, you get a nice signing bonus, like that's great. But now it gets harder. when you have those type of guys that understand how, I think the general concepts of like how you increase your leverage by focusing on player development. First rounders sign $1 million bonuses. Like that's just a thing. These kids' lives have been fundamentally changed because how they presented in terms of tools and skills. And yes, part of that is also seeing advanced level competition, right? Like I get that. But when it comes to, our approach at the academy, or even drill it even one step further down when it comes to like the skills and scale approach in terms of the book, the whole point is from like 8 to 14, 8 to 15. How do you change what those next 4 years look like if you spend that critical period of time in consideration of the thing that is going to give you more leverage, more fun, and more engagement? And if first rounders,
crazy tough, honestly.
And if first rounders understand that, I would hope that we can help other parents start to understand that.
Or a guy that you'll have to edit this and bleep out if I can't do this, but someone like, I don't know, a two-way international superstar coming here after a down year, and then winding up becoming the international superstar that he is after coming here. And like, you as a parent know better. Like, he literally was and that was before we were big.
Yeah, that was
That was like right at the cusp where he came. He was like the very end of the early adopters, quote unquote. And it was just like, he was willing to do it differently. And like, do it and potentially get in trouble. Potentially risk his whole career.
Yep.
And he was willing to do it because he believed in what we were doing. And I would say it worked out. I think he would also agree with that.
If I can imagine a player like that, of that type of composition and history and choice, I suspect that it probably worked out well for the guy.
Yeah. And like,
I have a feeling.
And we can edit this part out too, but like more of the specifics of some of the Arizona stuff, which it is like, to boil it down as simply as possible, we're in the middle of the development phase. And we are dealing with kids going and playing tournaments on weekends with their old club or with a buddy's club or whoever it is.
They just need a guest player.
They need a guest player. Great. We're not playing a tournament this weekend because this is the time of year we don't play in tournaments because we're doing development. Sure, I'm free. I'll come and play with you. And like, I get it. It seems harmless. Like it does. It seems like relatively harmless. My old team, my buddy needed a guest player for the weekend, whatever.
And I think there's also there's a possibility that it is harmless, right?
100%.
Like maybe you do play 3 games and they DH you and you go 2 for 8 and there is no, but you're also opening the door for all that other possibility. And it's like, we were talking about it this morning. The reason that this whole double dipping of like trying to play games while you're in a development phase, it's like there's only 2 kind of outcomes here. One is that if you tell us about it, right, and now we have to modify programming, but now you can't participate in development because you don't have the training economy to do that. Or 2, you don't tell us, right, and you try to do it under the table, and then let's say you go out and throw 120 pitches 2 days after you did apply velocity. And then you don't tell us, and then you would have a recovery day, but then you'd have a high intent day coming again probably on the Wednesday.
Yeah, there's a chance that kid who is purely hypothetical, I have to assume purely hypothetical here, there's a chance that kid flew through a plyo velo Wednesday, 70 pitches Saturday, 60 pitches Sunday, and then is going to throw another high intent workout on Wednesday, which would be 4 high intent throwing days in a 7-day span.
That sounds a lot like the Reinhold study.
And like, except
Inside
in this
joke
case,
for anybody who's listening for a long time.
Correct. Except in this case, it's not someone trying to prove that weighted balls are bad. It's someone who just like totally doesn't get it.
Yeah, and I think
they don't understand like how much stress that is on an arm.
Yeah, and I think it's honestly fine for us to have this conversation here because I think people should be aware that like we deal with this stuff too.
Oh yeah.
We deal with this stuff too. And I think it just comes down to like some pretty simple stuff, man. Like if you buy in and you trust that like we're good, and look, man, we're just the best in the world of player development. Like there's a reason why this company is in business. There's a reason why we have all this space. We have a roster of pros and collegiate kids. There's a reason why our coaching stuff is good. Like there's a reason. And if you buy in on that, then you should probably behave in consideration of the stuff that's going to allow us to do our jobs. The opposite is also true. If you don't buy in on that stuff, then the best news for you is that there are other programs out there where you can,
a lot of them.
Like you can do probably whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can really choose your own adventure through this whole thing. I would offer that like there's a reason that like coaches get paid. You know, there's a reason that Driveline as a company exists. Like you were saying, you know, like we suffered through that era where guys had to do their plyo throwing in the showers underneath their MLB stadiums in the dark.
And I watched big leaguers show up at 4:30 during spring training when I was the only one there because I was there early to get set up. They threw up early and freaked out because I was there because they showed up to throw plyos and nobody else was allowed to see it.
Right. Like we suffered through that era. From that, we developed systems and structure to maximize the benefit of what we do. That stuff requires a lot of time and consideration given not only to like when you train, but how you rest. And when your choices that you make, that you ultimately individually are responsible for, or you're responsible for your child's choices to a degree. When those things get made in the, out of consideration of that thing, and we have gone, hey, this is important. This is kind of the commitment level we're looking for. This is the consistency that you need. This is the benefit. And you kind of go like, well, I want to do my other thing. Like, cool. Like, wish you the best. Good luck.
And this is everything, I believe this encompasses everything from like team hopping on weekends to I'm going to go lift with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
We lift 3 times a week at Driveline. I'm going to go on Saturday with my dad. We like to go bond and go to the gym or whatever, and he makes me do all this stuff. And it's like, okay, so like let us know and we'll not let you lift Fridays and give you things to do on Saturdays so you can do it properly.
Sure.
And if that's really a problem, if dad doesn't believe in the way we do things or has his own workout regimen for you, the best question I have for you is it working?
Mm-hmm.
Are you like completely happy with where you are at? You know, we have a situation with one of our teams. I won't say an age or a location or anything, but like where the kid is not a very good athlete at all. Not a very good baseball player.
Got a lot of ways to go.
Got a lot of ways to go. We're trying to make him better. And we are hearing that like dad is doing lifting stuff outside of Driveline. And it's basically like, it's fine. I know what I'm doing. Like, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. It's like, well, is it working? Because like he's X age and struggling to do a push-up. So like we're not even talking about like RDLs or benching. We are talking about like push-ups and bodyweight squats that you're struggling with. Like, it is what you are doing working to the degree that you are willing to pay a decent amount of money for Driveline and then not follow what we're telling you to do and like actively go against what we're telling you to do because you think you know better.
Yeah. Like
you might. There are definitely parents out there that like know more about lifting than I do. There's parents.
Yeah.
Probably Matt Howard is parent. There's parents out there that know more about baseball than I do.
Sure. Like Stan Efferding has kids. You know, like I'm sure that Stan Efferding does a great job of doing the strength programming of his children. That's the flipping rhino, dude.
Correct.
But man, you probably aren't that guy.
You are paying a good amount of money to send your kid to the experts. All I ask is that you humbly let the experts be the experts.
Yeah.
And like we are, it is a fight that's going to go on for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially as we expand and enter new markets and markets that aren't used to this. Like we are the ones doing it weird. And in 5 years, everyone's going to want to do it this way because it's going to have been fully proven as the way to do it. And until we get to that point, some of you, and like, it kills me to hear, which we heard a bunch last year, that like, we've got a couple of clubs in the Washington area who like to encourage their kids to make fun of kids who play for other programs. So like, we had kids who, breaks my heart, but like, they didn't want to wear Driveline clothing to school because they would get made fun of by these kids who play for other orgs and bullied because they don't win games. And like,
just watch.
Yeah,
just watch.
Yeah, it breaks my heart, but my message to those kids was like, you will get the last laugh, I promise you.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get the last laugh. These kids are going to be either done playing baseball or you're going to pass them by the time it's all said and done. And, like, they don't get it. And you do.
Yeah.
So, like, more power to you. We are going to have to fight through that for a few more years until, like, things really change. I mean, it took probably 10 years for big league baseball to really come around. And now we're seeing a little bit of a push, a backlash of, we're kind of going back a couple years now.
Good luck with that.
And so, like, it's not unrealistic to think that it's at minimum 10-year fight with youth baseball.
Yeah.
And we're on year 4.
Yeah. And it's just like, so much of that is just like some is good, more is better, and most is best. And I, as a parent, like I understand that. Like, I understand this biological imperative to try to help your kid. And it's like, well, we have to do more. We have to do more. We have to do more. Like, and I get that. I also understand, that you see Johnny Farmello playing for Canes. You see Johnny Farmello playing for a national organization on the travel side.
Yeah.
For anybody that's joining us right now, I just said some stuff that I'm going to edit. So now this is the new version. So apologies. Maybe we'll do this as like a plus exclusive and a non-edited one. I understand that you see Johnny Farmello play for a big national organization, and you look at your kid and you're like, well, I've got to do that, right? But you have to work backwards and start to first principles this whole thing. Why is Johnny Farmello playing for this specific national organization? Because he's really flippin' good. He's really good, as a matter of fact, in a way that you can actually quantify publicly. But potato, tomato, man, your kid is not that, but you choose to behave the way that he does and expect that it's going to land you in the same place.
And again, I fully get the non-parent person here. I fully get how difficult it must be to willingly let your kid be a guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get that that's what this feels like. It's not because guinea pigs happen at the beginning of experiments, and we're not at the beginning of our experiment. We know it works.
I mean, the stuff that we do has already been proven. So
correct. So they're not guinea pigs, but like I get that it can feel like that. Yeah, I get that it can feel like that. That like I'm potentially sending my kid to a place where he's going to wind up getting made fun of by friends that he used to play with because they're not winning as many games. Like, I get that there are other considerations that make really buying in fully difficult. And again, all we ask is that you trust us. And if you're going to send your kid here and register and sign up, know that like we will do whatever to get your kid to his goals. And nobody else is really going to say that.
And we'll prove it along the way. Which again is like the hilarious part, but I think it really just says a lot about, what parents are trained to understand about the value prop of this whole thing. Like they see it in different terms. It feels like we're having a conversation in a different language, well, maybe that's not even true because again, when you look at these national rankings, and a lot of these rankings are eyewash, but I digress. Those rankings come with metrics.
Yeah, every one of them.
Every flipping one of them. Some of them might not be accurate. Some of them might be eyewash, but they come with metrics. So then when we communicate the development of our kids along those same metric lines, right? And we can't, I would love it. I would love to be able to go like, hey, your kid throws 70 now. I feel really confident we can get him to 85 in 3 years. I can't do that because I can't make your child work hard. Which, to be really clear, I think is the one thing that as a parent, can be challenging, which is that you could have caught religion about all this player development stuff. And if your child doesn't want to work hard, despite the fact that we do everything in our power to not only train that culture,
but incentivize it,
but incentivize that behavior, right? Ultimately, it is on the athlete. And again, I've said this on the pod before. I'll say it again. Conversation that I had with D a few weeks ago. He was like, I realized I didn't take the lifting serious when I was like 13. And what's so funny, when I was on the plane, shout out to United for having some of the worst on-air Wi-Fi ever. And I'm aware this is a first world problem. Like, I get it. But when you're looking at a 6-hour flight and you have 6 hours of work to do, and you have to turn the Wi-Fi on and off and on and off and on and off a dozen times over the course of a flight. So shout out to you guys. But I couldn't get on the Wi-Fi, so I'm just looking through old videos on my phone. And I found a video from almost 4 years ago of when Danny first bench pressed at our house. Junior bar, and I'm pretty sure it was like 2.5s on the end. He's so tiny. He was pre-voice change, and he gets like 5 reps, right? But like, it was kind of struggle bus. I mean, it wasn't terrible. Like, it was fine. But you know, it's like 45 pounds.
Yeah.
Benched 135 last week before I left. Yeah. How did we get there?
Well, so bringing back the showcase thing, right? Like you said, showcase ranking leaderboards, they all have metrics.
Mm-hmm.
I think almost every kid, I could be speaking out of turn here, but I think almost every kid is going to have to take like an ACT or an SAT through school.
Yeah.
So,
I think they're still encouraged, right? Yeah.
I think they have to. Public school studies. So, anyways, I did, but that was a long time.
Sure.
So, if these tests are not cheap to take the ACT, SAT. If I could tell you beforehand what your score was before you took it, and then you could spend time studying, working on what you need to do before actually taking that test the first time.
This is such a nails analogy.
That's almost like all the showcase numbers being listed and me being able to tell you, if you participate in that showcase, you would be like the 18th kid. Now, let's improve your 60 time, let's improve your exit velo, let's improve your throwing velo, get you up those boards before you actually attend a showcase. So it's literally like giving you the answer or like the grade on the test before you take it and allowing you to study and make your grade better before you actually have to take the test for the first time.
On the specific curriculum that you need to improve.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, and again, what's funny is I'm looking through old stuff on my phone. I don't have anything else to do. Screenshot that I had from like PG, I pulled a kid up. It was a 2027 because at some point last year, Danny was, or no, it was early in the saw season. It was around summertime. He asked me about like perfect game rankings and stuff. So I pulled up a kid on PG, and the kid threw 86 or 87, and it was like 98th percentile, right? And then it had class averages for 2027, which was like 71. It's right there, man.
Yeah.
If you're high 8s or mid 8s at that point, you are top of the food chain.
Yeah.
If you are close to that like low 7 average, we got some stuff to work on. And it's just, to me, and I suppose it's just because I've been immersed in this for the last 5.5 years and however long I've been following Driveline prior to. But I think your analogy is so nails, is because that's what that signal is. It's telling you exactly how deficient or not your athlete is relative to their peers. And again, like you say, you don't scout the outlier, right? So that kid that's a 2027 that's pumping 86, I'm pretty sure that his physical composition is like very different than my son's or any of the other kids in our academy that are like also in the 8s.
Right.
Okay, but what's the thing that they can compete on? It's the skill. Yeah. And so, yeah, we've got smaller kids that might not be a 98th percentile kid, but we might be 95. We might be 92. What's going to happen in the next 3.5 to 4 years?
Whereas right now, most kids look at it and be like, oh, I'm pretty far behind in math, right? Well, I guess I just got to keep taking this ACT. At some point, I'm going to score higher, right? Like, that's going to happen.
And then, like, man, this is the best analogy I think we've ever come up with on the show. Because, like, exactly, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. And then you're surprised your test scores don't change.
Right.
what are we doing?
Yeah. That's like, I legit had friends, and I was, was obviously no longer, like a pretty large nerd, right? So like, test grades were very important to me and my group of friends in high school. And I had friends who would take a test, like take the ACT or SAT or whatever it was, like back-to-back weeks, or like, twice a month or whatever it was. And it's like, why? You're not going to improve. Like, you didn't do anything to improve between taking those two tests. Like, if you look at your grade and then be like, okay, I just really struggle with math, I'm going to go talk to my math teacher, buy your math test prep book, whatever it is, and then retake it. That makes sense to me. I understand what you're doing. But like, 2 times in 3 weeks when you're not doing anything in between, it's like, no, it'll get better. How? How are you expecting this to get better? It's like, well, I'll sleep more next time. Okay. What happens if that doesn't work then? Like the third time, you try sleeping less and see if like maybe that improves? Like,
And don't people pay for like ACT, SAT courses?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Like,
yes.
we have money, so
courses, books, all that stuff. Yeah.
What's the baseball equivalent of that?
Yeah.
Do the math. Like, it's right.
Well, actually,
right there.
the baseball equivalent of most ACT, SAT prep is probably like the lessons.
The intervention coach.
Yeah, because most of them is like, this is the one thing you need. I'm gonna like hammer this instead of more like, let's figure out why you're struggling with this and like,
Yeah. So instead, it's more like it's like in Kill Bill, where she goes to China to work with the Kung Fu master and like puts her entire life into that, and then is able to do like the 5-stop, death punch or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, do the death punch then. Come play for Driveline. So don't kill anybody. Man of peace, peaceful people most of the time. Anyways, I feel like this Virginia rant started, and then we just went into like a really other long thing.
Yeah, with the thing that's probably on both of our minds over the past few days. And, Jeremy and I are like dealing with this stuff too. I mean, if you're listening to this pod, you have an understanding of like this development-driven approach, and you struggle with how to get that to resonate with other people and have their actions fall in line with that stuff. If you struggle with that, then like, look, man, we struggle with it too. Yeah.
I think, both of us dream of like a more perfect mousetrap to solve this stuff early. But I think the other thing that I'm just becoming like very acutely aware of is that not everybody's going to get it. Like you just can't. And we are, I think you're 100% right. We are just still very much in the beginning of this stuff in youth baseball. We're not anywhere close to the end of the beginning. We're still very much at the forefront. And again, like, I mean, that was the interesting thing when I was talking to, Farmello and Triantos is talking to them about like their travel baseball experience.
Yeah.
And talk about like what, by their end stage of things, when it's like you're a senior in high school, we're at 18U, those guys that have worked themselves into that position of like, look, I'm looking at being a first rounder. Pudge Gorman had Bryce Eldridge.
Yeah.
So that's 4 first rounders out of Virginia.
Bryce Eldridge was 6'8", so
Yeah.
Your kid is not him.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like, Pudge is so hilarious. He was like, he first saw Bryce, I think when he was 9. Because he was
like 6'1".
Probably. And he was like, I couldn't get him into 9U. I couldn't get him out of 10. I couldn't get him out of 11 and 12 and 13. And he was like, the whole time, I could never get that kid out. And he's like, I'm over there calling pitches, trying to get him out. He's like, I couldn't get him out, but I knew that eventually he was going to come play for my high school. So it's fine. Those kids, by that end stage of things at 18, and if they've set up already some amount of future play, whether that's collegiate or professional, they reach that stage where like, it's like they're baby pros, like their whole life is starting to revolve around this thing because they're on the cusp of being able to actually do that thing that almost nobody does. And the tricky thing to kind of figure out is that like they worked their way into that opportunity.
Yeah.
Like they worked that way into that opportunity through years and years and years and years of work prior to. And that work that's going to put you in a position to need like this really specific configuration of your schedule, to need to see advanced competition, et cetera, Well, you can't put that part first. It just doesn't make any sense. But oftentimes, because I think that's the thing maybe it's just because it's more visible. Like maybe because it's more visible and you go out and you see, dirtbags canes, you see, I don't know. I mean, you see these larger, these larger programs, you see IMG versus, I don't know, whatever.
Bishop Sycamore.
Sure. Man, that doc was so good. You see that stuff and you're like, oh, well, that's just the path. And you don't realize that again, the reason that those kids are being put in those positions is because of how they present on skill. And sometimes they might be put in those positions and not even have to pay $1 because the skill stuff is already there. But if you're putting your kid on an organization that has some sort of national presence, and you think that one thing is going to turn into the other, good luck with that. I did a new survey on the off limits of youth baseball when I was making my slides. I found a nationally ranked 9U team and an 11U team. I want you to guess the total number of games that they played between the two of them. Last year.
260.
It's actually less than 200, but not by much.
Well, hey, under 200 is that's. I'm impressed. I would have thought it would be way worse.
174 games. And the funny thing is that I was looking at it, the fact that we would even think that that's we would shoot for 260 and be positively surprised if it's $1.74 between the two. It's how bad has it got?
Yeah, because that is still well over 2 times the amount of games that should have been that instant.
Correct.
And you said it earlier, but we're not travel. That doesn't mean we won't ever be. There is, and we both understand this acutely, it comes a point where you need better competition.
Yep.
The entire point of what we're saying is don't push yourself into that before you get to that point. Do everything you can. Once you get to that point, we have plans of sending teams out to national tournaments, combining teams from different locations and sending them out to national tournaments once they are ready to do that. But there is no point to have people spend a ton of money, weekends. I'm sure those 9 and 11U or 8 and 11U or what it was, I'm sure a bunch of those were travel tournaments out of state.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, because you can look at their schedule.
Yeah.
I tried to wrap my head around the amount of money that it would take just to do that travel.
Yep. Nobody is saying that there is 0 point to doing these national tournaments, national competitions, whatever. There is 0 point to putting the cart before the horse.
You need to earn that opportunity.
Yeah.
You have to earn that opportunity. And
if you're doing that and sitting on the bench while you have teammates who are going around on national teams and you're just along for the ride, I hope you enjoy the ride. Because it's probably going to end pretty soon. If you're not actively training to get better and you're just kind of bench riding for a national team. Yeah. You're getting the worst of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, you really are. Because the cost is through the roof. The ROI is so negligible, both in current and long-term leverage. But you're spending a crap ton of money.
Mm-hmm. And time. The thing you can't get back. You can always make more money. You can't ever get time back.
Right, which doesn't say anything for the social emotional stress that you may be putting on a child. And that's the other thing. 9 and 11-year-olds, I understand it, but it still turns my stomach.
Yeah, I mean, you can even get older. There was one of the parents. It's please be rational. Don't empty your 401k to pay for training for your child, who maybe isn't great. That's not a rational thing to do. And then you are putting all of that. In addition to the game being really hard, you are now putting all of that on your child. Where now, not only does your child have to do this for them, for their own baseball career and their own aspirations, but now they have this added pressure of our whole future just got mortgaged, if you will, on like
athletics.
on your 14, 15 kids' career future earnings, which is just like, talk about putting pressure on a kid at 9-11. Like, they like remember that these are children, like all of them. They're all children. Even if they're really good at baseball, they're still a child.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, Formello and Triantos, baby faces.
Oh, I'm sure.
Just baby faces.
No, neither of them could be over 22 at this point. They both got to be sub 22.
Yep. Yeah. Great young men, but like they're still just babies.
Yeah.
They're still babies, and you can put those kids in a uni with a ball cap on, and they look like ball players. But like it's always so funny to me when you see them without the uniform, without the armor, and it's just like, oh, that's a young man.
Yeah. And it used to, like, I've always been, well, not always, but like since working in pro ball, they get to play a kid's game for a living, or any of those types of insinuations that there's not a lot of work that goes into being a pro ball player, and it always comes out around this time of the year when larger contracts are being handed out.
People get paid.
Yeah, people get paid, and like what, it's like, sure, they are better than you at baseball. They also work like 6 hours a day minimum, and it's more if they have games to play on this. And like most humans wouldn't ever push their body like that. Didn't matter how much money you would get paid, most humans probably would not be willing to do that every day. And like most people don't see that stuff because it's behind the scenes. So it's just like, all they do is go and play the games.
You just show up.
Right, you just show up and play the games.
7 o'clock games.
Yeah,
show up around 6.
It's a show and go. It's a show and go, right? Like they're not there at 4:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning on a spring training day, and these aren't kids, whether it's from this country or from another country, living at home for the first time playing pro ball, still being kids and also having the expectations of like their future on the line, and then you take one step beyond that, and now you get high school kids.
Yep.
Who are just like, they don't need that added pressure of being your future lottery ticket.
Yeah. I mean, look, because at the end of the day, if you earn the right, you can earn the right to have some of that type of pressure. Like having Pudge tell the story of Bryce Eldridge and his decision to pitch in the state championship final. Pudge tells the story went better than I will. I won't even try it. But like, the kid knew he was a draft prospect. He knew he was going to be a first rounder. He knew that like he had already opened up the door for the next thing. And he didn't necessarily have to pitch in the state final. Felt a little bit sore. But like you can't, and that's pressure, right? Like that's pressure, is trying to make a decision like that. Trying to go, if I go out and I succeed, then I did the thing I was supposed to do. And if I go out and struggle and fail, well, then now they're going to try to hold it over me, right? Like,
so now when I'm successful, it's supposed to happen. So I'm not going to get excited over it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, to your point, consider that is a child that has to negotiate that decision.
Yeah.
Why we would want to create an environment where 12, 13, like prepubescent children have to grapple with that same structure and with none of the payoff.
No, got it.
Like none of the payoff. That to me is just, it's completely asinine, and it's the one, it's I think one of the most significant things I fundamentally don't understand. Well, I understand how we landed here. I wish that some amount of like logical intervention had taken place prior to, but wishes
as a species are not great at.
Yeah, this is like the wishes and horseshoes and hand grenades or whatever that saying is that my grandfather used to throw at me all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we gonna do a pod next week? We'll have time, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll
maybe
figure it
probably
out.
on Monday, but
Yeah, we'll figure out a pod.
I mean, I'm around on Monday.
Yeah. Me too. So, Skills to Scale, the complete training manual, it's out and available for pre-order right now. We are busting our tails to get the proof process, or to get the physical books printed and done to get to you guys by no later than late January. I have made the private proclamation to Choppa that if I needed to do meth for a very short period of time to get this book done and in hands before late January, I'll do it. I don't want to do that though. No methamphetamines for me. So we're just going to do the work. Yeah, we're just going to do the work. We're going to get the books in hand to you, shipping so they get to you no later than late January, so that you can start to roll that stuff into the spring. If you previously bought Hack the Kinetic Chain Youth Baseball Development Certification, the Skills to Scale practice book, you should have in your email a discount code that gets you the new book for cheaper, because I appreciate the heck out of the fact that you've been supporting and riding us with this for us previously. If you are going to be at ABCA, I am very positive we're going to do a discount code for ABCA, because that's generally the thing we will do. Again, it's going to be pre-order because I'm not sure I'm going to have physical copies for you at ABCA, but again, would be shipping before the end of the month. What else do we have coming on? Ooh. On a boat right now is a new product that we developed that I should have before the end of this month. We made a couple bats. First one comes out. It's going to be coming out. Should have it before the end of this month. So we might have to talk about that like when we get back from ABCA.
Oh, we should have done like a slogan of like kid tested, Driveline approved.
Ooh.
Damn.
Well, we haven't done the retail packaging yet, so
that's
yeah, I'm in on that. Kid tested Driveline.
What was that? Is that
That's
Is that Jif?
I think it was. Yeah, kid tested, mother approved.
Yeah, we get sued for that?
No, I mean we're adjacent to. It's not.
It's okay.
Kids
Because we
tested-
did test this on the kids.
No, it was Kix.
What?
Kix the cereal.
That was cereal? I could
Yeah.
swear that was. Oh no, it was Choosy Moms Choose Jif. That's what it was.
Oh yeah.
That's
Dude,
what it was.
that's right. That's right.
We could rip that one off for another product.
Yeah, I really,
Kix, man. Nobody eats Kix.
I
That's a
actually,
good slogan, and it didn't work.
I enjoyed Kix as a kid. I liked that cereal.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it was better than cornflakes. So
Yeah, but now cereals are just desserts
yeah,
labeled as cereal. So like, why would a kid ever eat Kix when there's like
no.
fruity chocolate sugar
Oh,
grams?
dude, I remember going to my cousin's house when I was a kid, and his parents would let him get like the Count Choculates and stuff, like of that ilk.
Yeah.
I'd go home and flip a Kix, be like, "What are we doing?"
The furthest my parents would ever go is Captain Crunch.
Yeah,
That was like the
Yeah.
most sugar they were willing to let me eat. Like I was a
Yeah.
hard no on any of the other ones that I tried. And then just like a couple days ago, I was walking down. I don't know why I was in the cereal line because I don't eat cereal. But I walked down and I was like, not one of these looks even healthy adjacent. Like what are we doing? Like poor teachers that we just send these kids off like with a ton of sugar for the first 2 hours of class, and then they all fall asleep at like 11 a.m.
Well, the funny thing is, like, sometimes there'd be like Rice Krispies in the house, and of course, what is my dumbass doing? I take the sugar container and just dump.
Yeah.
It's just dump. You just create like sugar milk out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, kid tested, Driveline approved. New training bats are going to be coming in the new year. I'm really excited about it. Skills to Code new training manual pre-order available right now. Copy shipping to you before the end of January. We got a lot of cool stuff happening with Academy Online. If you're looking to do the Driveline stuff, and you don't even have like the physical ability to be on our teams, but you want to engage in the training, and you have a team, we will suit your training schedule to do our stuff in consideration of your schedule.
Yep.
I'm really excited about kind of where Academy Online is going to go in this next year. I think we got some cool stuff.
Because even, and like maybe we can talk about this next week for next week's episode, but like a preview. Even if you believe in the Driveline training, but you don't want to jump in head first and put your kid on a Driveline team because there's some thought in the back of your head that it won't work, or actually the better one, you really currently love your coach, love all your teammates, and want to stay with your team. Great, do it, have fun. We can give you training that complements and supplements what you're already doing with your team without overdoing it. It is a great entry level if you don't want to full sail join one of our teams. It is the best way to do Driveline without actually being on.
And you can get it cheaper than what you're paying for the hitting lesson and the pitching lesson and your strength lesson or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's $150 a month. So that's most people pay at minimum $75 for a lesson. So it's 2 lessons a month.
Yeah. So, man, good year next year.
Yeah.
Good year next year. Thank you guys, as per usual, for the likes, the subscribes, the notifications, all the things you do to kind of express the algorithmic support. What did we say the Axbat.com code was? DL20, otherwise known as Dionysus Lancer 20. You should probably just go with the DL20 at this point and not try to unpack whatever weird words my brain is going to suggest. Sure, I mean that's memorable codes.
We should ask if they've had people submit codes like Dionysus Lancer and not DL20 because they pick up the entire word and not just the initials. If you put Dionysus Lancer 20 in the coupon code box and that doesn't work, my apologies. The code is DL20. Thank you guys. Shoot an email to Devin at driveline@baseball.com and complain.
2 E's, baby. I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.